The best ever paying job I've ever had made me go through quite a few emotions. First one was fear. I was fearful that I was going to be asked a direct question, not a hard question, but a direct one by an inspector. There was camaraderie, there was humor, it was relaxed. The job required a few practical skills, a few basic math skills, but nothing major. I learned to operate a forklift truck. I silently became furious about every office job I've ever had. I didn't expect to be in this pharmaceutical factory, but after the health crisis that I talked about in the previous video, I was scraping by, doing everything I could get my hands on, evening delivery jobs, gardening, decorating, what have you, and then work started to dry up. So I decided to go back to the recruitment agency that placed me in the call center that I talked to you about a few episodes ago. I wasn't precious about either doing white collar or blue collar, which actually helped because they first placed me in a white collar job. I was doing some sales, some telesales for a company, temping for them. Then something else came up, a temporary to perm role at a factory, something new. So I was like, yeah, let's do this. Now, this is why I became a little bit furious about every other job I've ever taken, office jobs. It's because I wasn't prepared for the pay. See, I thought that white collar jobs paid much more than blue collar jobs. I had been conditioned to thinking that white collar jobs were of higher value, required more brain power, and therefore paid more. But no, this factory job paid more than every other job I've ever had. Now, the fear that I had, though, was that alongside all the camaraderie, the fact that the work wasn't grueling, there was a pressure to look the other way because we did have processes that we had to abide by, but depending on the workload, sometimes we cut corners. The instruction was if we were being inspected and the inspector came to us with a difficult question like this, we would either say nothing or be dishonest. Fortunately, I was never asked that question. Then Brexit happened. So free movement of goods and people was a thing of the past. Costs greatly increased. Timing of transport was jeopardized. So unsurprisingly, the UK operation started to not make business sense anymore. The company struggled. So they started to lay off staff. And then eventually the whole UK factory had to close. So I was made redundant again. By this point, I've lost count how many times. But there we go. Now this redundancy hit different for two reasons. First of all, the redundancy package or the severance package was generous, but also this was in a way a clearer version of what I've been naming in all the previous few episodes. When you take something personally, you think that it's the result of your own failure, whereas actually it's a structural issue and you're just bearing the brunt of it. Nobody was really prepared because we were being convinced that everything would be hunky-dory. You see, some of the forces that shape your working life aren't personal. Brexit didn't target my company, it didn't target me, it didn't even target the pharmaceutical industry. You can find all types of stories about people who suffered because of Brexit. Sometimes it's not about office politics. So instead of asking ourselves, what should I have done differently? Why didn't I anticipate this? If it ever happened, how would you do differently? In this circumstance, it's a reasonable question to ask. It's normal, but it's the wrong question to ask. But at this point, let me name the enemy. The enemy is to always think of negative things happening as a personal failure. Actually, more often than not, there's a structural issue that is actually at fault, but the blame is easier passed to somebody in particular. Namely, us who are actually suffering at the end of that structural shift. So if there's a phrase to take away from this, and from all the episodes actually, so far, and it's gonna continue, I don't know for how long, but it's try to identify, to distinguish between a systemic failure and a personal one. And don't mistake systemic failures for personal ones. The blame is not squarely on your shoulders. Now, I mentioned that this redundancy felt different, wasn't traumatic. I was generously taken care of. But that didn't stop me from carrying on building this kind of aversion for employment. And I was starting to get fed up with it. This is how the systems work. Knowing what I know now, how should I best navigate this? What is it that I should build in order not to rely so heavily on those systems? What I built from that point is what comes next. I'm going to be describing what happens next when you stop arguing with the evidence. Stay tuned. Ciao. It made me go through different emotions. Reginald, another time. I am recording. No cameo today, please. I'm gonna be describing,
but the long way round,
the best ever. I said,
My life was
look at her trying to get into the house. No.
What did it all mean? We gotta find out. Talk it out. Rudy, I know. Here we go. Let's go.